What's going on, my lovely people? I'm back, couple of books. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm gonna do that at the start of the video this time. Anyway, guys, today I'm back with another review, and it's actually a historical fiction, which happens to be, I'd say, my favorite genre of fiction books. You know what I mean? So when I came across this, I was actually recommended it by one of my friends, and I'm really glad that I heeded her advice and I got the book because I enjoyed, I'd say, about 90 to 80% of it. You know what I mean? The first 100 pages may have been a bit difficult to get through, but after that I stormed through it. And anyway, I feel like I'm waffling. You don't even know what the book is. The book is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. So this book follows, it's an intergenerational tale. So it follows four generations. So it's starting from 1910 to 1989, set in Korea around the time of Japanese, when the time of Japan were colonizing Korea, and it culminated in them being split into North Korea and South Korea. So this follows the tale of literally four generations of a family, starting from the grandmother all the way to her great grandchildren. And it pretty much is a tale on, I'd say, a tale on sacrifice, suffering, racism, marginalization, and just being an alien in your own society. So with that, when Japan colonized Korea, Korea pretty much went to shit. So a lot of the Koreans had to go over to Japan in order to survive, whether it be just to survive and able to feed themselves, because inflation in Korea was through the roof. You didn't know whether you were coming or going. You didn't know what the price of bread would be from one week to the next. So in order to survive, most families or Korean families had to move over to Japan. And that is what this family did. And when I tell you, this book is it's a 490 page novel. Well, no, it's not actually 500 and something. Yeah, 490 pages. And with that, like, Min Lee's characterization of these characters, so starting with the mum and her relationship and how she ended up having her children, whether it was what was his name, Mazizo and Noah. That's all I'm gonna say. Mazizo and Noah, and their settlement in Japan was fraught with so many just problems, and as a result of being Korean. So in Japan, Koreans are looked down upon as pretty much a lower species. So with that, they're completely marginalized. They are excluded from many parts of the job sector, so they can't become teachers. They can't work in the technology field just because Japanese don't want to be seen to be employing Koreans, and they also just don't want to employ Koreans. So with that, the family pretty much they were working from dusk till dawn, or dawn to dusk. I don't know which way around it is, but just living hand to mouth and having to provide for themselves as well as a whole family. I mean, at one point in the story, there was three generations living in one house under one roof. So you can imagine. And with that and them having to survive, the crucial characters of this story are women. And I find that it was the women who kept the families together. They were, going out at work at God knows what hours, 3, 4 a.m., and making food to sell in the market to then pay for their children's education and to put food on the table. They were at the forefront of the novel. And every corner you turned, there was a strong woman who was just holding things together, being that knitting force, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and also I'd say that, actually, you know what? Pachinko, just because that's the novel, the name of the novel is Pachinko. Pachinko, there's a definition for it, yeah? And it actually is, Pachinko means So it is a type of mechanical game originating in Japan and is used as both a form of recreational arcade game and much more frequently as a gambling device, filling a Japanese gambling niche comparable to that of the slot machine in the Western gaming. So, Pachinko plays a huge part. That's probably why the novel is called Pachinko, but it plays a huge part in propelling many Koreans to, let's say, just independence, economic independence. So, as I said before, because so many of them were excluded from working in the normal job fields, they took to creating these pachinko parlors, gambling parlors, and with that, a lot of money was made from pachinko, and it meant that a lot of families or Korean families could come to Japan and make ends meet, and also to make their family more prosperous without having to live with the marginalization of the Japanese, etc., etc. Ah, man, I'm waffling. But anyway, the novel is like, and when I say like pachinko, and just the fact that when you read the novel, you'll find that one of the main reasons that leads to the family from start to finish, their kind of rise was a really slow, gradual rise, but from start to finish, their rise to prosperity was largely due to pachinko parlors. And I guess that, and to this day, pachinkos is still a huge part in Japan and part of Korean culture. And yeah, there were so many little hidden gems in the meaning behind pachinko, because it's a gambling sort of slot machine, and the pachinko parlor owners, they always make these tiny adjustments to the calculations and the machines, meaning that of course there'll be more losers than winners, but the few who do win, they'll live off of that win and keep coming back and lose their money. And of course, that is how the pachinko parlor owners got very rich. And I don't know, I feel like that was well, I read that in one of I think it was a good review, and it's like, it was a metaphor for how Koreans lived in Japan, in that they always thought they had a chance, and they would always try their hardest to be in the game and be in society. But at the end of the day, they were the Japanese who were controlling things. They were the invisible hand, kind of just making these tiny alterations just to maintain their dominance and keep the Koreans at heat. You know, and with that, like pachinko, I really love the fact that it just shines a much needed light on a part of history which not many people know about, including myself. I didn't have a clue that Japan had colonized Korea and it led to North and South Korea. I didn't have a clue. So it was enlightening, absolutely enlightening and enthralling. And another thing to add to it is that the marginalization, just imagine like living in a country or being a third or fourth generation in the UK and still having to register every 3 years to renew your passport. Imagine that. Imagine this literally being treated as an alien. And I think they call it an alien registration form, which you had to fill out and do your fingerprints. And throughout the novel, you realise the amount of intergenerational trauma which being treated as an outsider has caused a lot of the kids in the book, who are from their great-great-grandparents growing up in Japan. They still had these buzzwords, like which Japanese would call them, and which would completely cause, like, spark a reaction in their brains, which would just lead to a horrible recollection of just past events where they were bullied at school because they were the only Koreans in school, treated like absolute shit. There were cases where many students had committed suicide because they were bullied to the extent where they felt like taking their own lives was the easiest way out of it. And that part of the book was really eye-opening, and it's quite a sad, like I said at the start, it's brimming with emotions, and I really loved Min Lee's ability to like, give us such great characters and immerse us in such rich characters, but also to give us the historical side of it without it seeming like a bore. You know what I mean? It's just, I really, really enjoyed the novel. The first 100 pages may have been a bit difficult, but as soon as I got into it, it was just like they became part of you. And I guess that's what comes with a 490-page novel, is that you get time to really ruminate and soak up the characters and live with them, especially when you have 4 generations to go through. Yeah, with that, I'm just going to finish it there. And I would really recommend getting your hands on a copy of Pachinko, especially if you just want to learn about history and Japanese. It's never been on my list to learn about Japanese history, but it's a thing where I guess that's what great books do, is they open the door to so many other things. And now it's like, I'm pretty interested. I was on Wikipedia yesterday just doing some research and the Japanese colonization of Korea, and it was pretty cool to find out some things. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you do get the book. And I will be back next week with another review. And until then, don't forget to like and subscribe if you really liked the video. And until then, I'll be back next week, and have a great week, and do you be the best you, and I'll see you soon.